Welcome. I'm Annette, and I'm sewing in Michigan. I got out the things I wanted to show you today, and Nellie decided that all this fleecy stuff looked like a good place to lay down, didn't you, baby girl? I love you. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whatever it might be where you are. Welcome to the first video on my sewing channel. I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, and I'm just now getting around to it. I'm eager to talk about sewing with you and share my sewing journey and get some feedback from all of you, because I don't have that many people in my immediate life who engage in garment sewing. Now, I have plenty of crafters and quilters of other types, but when it comes to garment sewing, I really don't have very many people in my immediate circle to share that with. So I discovered YouTube and sewing videos on YouTube, which was a wonderful way to feel connected to people and to enjoy the excitement of fellow sewists who get just as enthused about beautiful fabric and new patterns as I do. So I'm eager to hear some feedback from you and to share my adventures with you. Now, I considered whether I should make a standalone introduction video for this channel and decided against it. I'd rather just introduce myself here on my first video and then go right into sharing some of my makes with you. I've got some on the sofa behind me ready to hold up and show you. I also thought I'd share some thoughts about the controversy, dilemma, confusion surrounding Joann fabrics and whether they will be closing or continuing, because that is a topic that will affect me, and I've been reading a lot online about it. So let's start just with kind of an introduction. My name is Annette. I live in Michigan. I am a university professor. So I spend my days reading and writing and teaching and learning in an academic setting, which I love. It's the perfect career for me. I find it very fulfilling. I love my job, and I know that's not something that a lot of people can say, but I also need a diversion from it from time to time. So my sewing journey began when I was very small. My mom taught me how to sew. She taught me on her machine, which is pictured there. That is a Singer 301A, and it's probably mid-century modern. It's like circa 1957 or something like that, I think. Best machine in the world. It is a warhorse. All it really does is sew forward and backward. You need all kinds of different feet and attachments to do anything like a zigzag or anything like that. But it's the machine I learned on, and it suits my needs 99% of the time. So I had sewn all through high school and college, and then I got out of the habit when I first started working, and that machine was in storage at my parents' house, so I didn't have a sewing machine for a lot of years until the pandemic hit. In 2020, when we were all, isolating at home and you couldn't get masks anywhere, we couldn't just go to the store and buy a box of paper masks as we can now. People were sewing cloth masks. And I decided I wanted to do that, and I didn't have a sewing machine, so I bought one, and I bought a really cheap plastic Brother machine that does a lot more than the Singer. It has a lot of special stitches. You can just turn a dial, but I haven't ever gotten quite used to it, so it's still in its box. but I sewed a lot of masks during that time and decided I might want to get back into garment sewing. Well, my mother passed away in 2021, and my dad, who is still living, he just turned 100. He lives in an assisted living place. He couldn't live on his own anymore. My parents had lived independently in their house um, until mom passed away, but dad needed to be somewhere where he was around other people. So, long story short, my brother and I had to clean out mom and dad's house and rehome a lot of their belongings. And in the course of clearing out the house, well, there was my old Singer sewing machine. And I was really happy to have it back. And ever since I got it back, I have been relearning how to sew. So I'm not quite a beginner. I would say I'm an advanced beginner, and I'm really enjoying the process. So now that I've given you a little bit of background as to how I got back into sewing, I'd like to show you some of the things I've made recently. I'm realizing my hair looks a little crazy. I just clamped it up on top of my head today. It's Saturday. What can I say? I've been sewing with fleece a lot lately. I had bought a fleece top at Costco, actually, and it's this. So this one is ready to wear. It's hooded, and it has a short zipper in the front. And I had been wearing that a lot because I'm cold all the time. And I decided I wanted to make something like that. Couldn't quite find a pattern I liked, so I just made a pattern from that. I traced it onto baking parchment. Cheap baking paper, baking parchment that you can get at the dollar store is wonderful for tracing patterns if you haven't discovered that yet. So I traced that out, and I did trace out the hood, but I decided not to make it because I find hoodies that have, the hood and the kangaroo pocket in the front to be very bulky, and I wanted something a little less bulky. So I found this beautiful fleece at Joann's. They were having a big sale on fleece near the holidays where it's normally something like $14.99 a yard, and they had it for $3.99, $4.99 a yard. So I bought many, many cuts of fleece. So maybe one of these days I'll do a fleece haul and show you what I have. Some of them are very pretty, I think. But I cut out this that you see me wearing in the picture here. Now, it wasn't entirely a success. I do wear it and like it, but there were a few challenges with it that had nothing to do with the self-drafted pattern and everything to do with the fabric. Okay, I wasn't sure how to bind the neck because I wasn't doing a hoodie, and the hood piece that I drafted from the ready-to-wear version had kind of the neck binding built into the bottom of the hood, so I needed to bind the neck just on its own. So I did a self-binding. I thought a facing might be too thick. I had a little bit of a challenge with the zipper, and I'm going to try to hold this up to a point where you can see. Yeah, the bottom of the zipper here, I had cut the placket too long, so there was kind of a not a hole, but an opening at the bottom of the zipper that I didn't want. So I noticed that the ready-to-wear one had a little piece of fabric in the bottom of the zipper placket like this, and I thought, okay, well, I'll just do that. But the biggest difficulty I had with it is I was trying to press it as I sewed, and I had my iron too hot, and pressing kind of not really melted it, but it made the fabric feel coarse. So I do think it had an adverse effect on the fleece. So note to self, learning things the hard way, don't press fleece. But I do like it. But I wanted to find a pattern that would allow me to make my own fleece tops a little more easily. So I found this one. So this is the pattern I bought. It's Simplicity 9240, and it's a unisex pattern. It has two views you can make. It has a crew neck type a sweatshirt or sweater, which is what I made. And then it has a hoodie version, which obviously I didn't make because I don't like the bulk. So this crew neck version has become a favorite pattern to me. It's something I really enjoy making because it's a very easy pattern. There's just a front, a back, and a sleeve, and it's a raglan sleeve, so it comes down from the neck. So there's those three pattern pieces, and then there is the neck binding, the cuffs, and the bottom binding, which are also pattern pieces. So 6 pattern pieces altogether, 3 for the garment itself, and 3 for the binding. Now, once again, I had a bit of an adventure with making this one. It's my favorite one. You can see I'm wearing it right now. I wear it all the time. But I hadn't worked with ribbing before in making these bindings around the neck and cuffs and bottom. So I had originally bought a fabric that I thought it was stretchy and it would work, but it didn't work very well. So I had done the neck, the cuffs, and the bottom in this. It was kind of like a dark green waffle weave, almost like long johns, if that makes sense, like long underwear material. And it wasn't very stretchy, and it was very soft. So it didn't work very well for the cuffing. And where I had bought the fleece, they didn't have any cuffing in dark green, which is what I wanted. My Joann's, my local Joann's, pretty much just has red, black, white, and bright blue. You know, they've got very little selection. I have since gone further afield and gone to other fabric stores and bought colored ribbing. This green one I ordered online and had to wait a few days for it to come. So I took the neck and cuffs and bottom off, redid it in the nice stretchy bright green or emerald green binding, and I love it. So that was a lesson learned that I need to be careful with what stretchy fabric I use to try to bind the edges of something like this. After that, I made another one. This one I sent to my sister-in-law because she was cold all the time too and was looking for nice sweatshirt type things. So one of the cuts of fleece I had bought at the Joann sale was this blue snowflake one. The ribbing is gray. That was the closest I could get with the colors that I had available to me. But I think it turned out really nice, and she likes it. And this is my most recent attempt, which is a work in progress. It's not entirely a failure, but there are things I'm working on it to fix. I am not experienced in sewing with knits, and this is like a sweater knit fabric that I made this out of, and the sizing came out completely different. It's the same pattern I made before. I made the unisex large, but the fabric drapes differently, hangs differently, just behaves differently than the fleece did. So as you can see from the picture, it came out very oversized. The sleeves are super long, and you know, they're the same sleeves I'm wearing here, but you can see there's a lot of extra bulk down near the bottom. And again, it's the way the material's hanging and draping. The body is, it seems much bigger on me than this fleece version, and it's longer than the other ones I've made. So that was kind of an odd thing that happened, and a lesson that I learned about how different fabrics behave differently. So what I have done is, give me a second. I have taken off the bottom ribbing and the cuffs. And so right now, they're just rough at the bottom, unsewn, unbound. And my plan is to, first of all, I want to take in the side seams just a little bit. So I'm going to turn it inside out and just, you know, take in the side seams maybe another 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to shorten the arms, the sleeves by, I don't want to go overboard, but maybe just take another inch or so off the sleeves and off the bottom. Also with the bottom binding, I want to make it just a hair smaller, so it pulls in just a little more, and then fix it. And I have had to, on almost every garment I've made since I've resumed sewing, I've had to go back and fix things like this. But I remember what my grandma used to tell me. Uh, she always said that half of sewing is ripping out and doing it over. So whenever we have to get out the seam ripper, we grumble about it. But her attitude was it's just part of the process of sewing, because you're not always going to get it right the first time, or even if you get it right, you may just not like the way it turns out. So I try to remember that whenever I have a problem like this. I remember when I was a young girl and learning, like a teenager, learning how to sew, I used to get really frustrated when things didn't turn out exactly the way it looked on the packet. And since then, and through watching a lot of other sewers' YouTube videos, I'm learning that um, alterations and redos are just kind of part of the process, and they happen to everybody, and things don't always turn out looking like they do on the packet. Also, I'm finding at this age and this stage of life, I know what styles look good on me, so I think I'm getting better at choosing patterns that the finished garment is going to be flattering on me. Whereas when I was younger, I would choose a pattern based on the picture on the front and the line drawings and the way it looked on the model, and expect it to look that way on me, and it just doesn't. I have a very straight up and down figure. I don't have an hourglass, so if I make things that do have an hourglass shape, if it fits me in the waist, it can be too big in the bust and hips. So I'm learning how to either choose a pattern that's more appropriate for me, and or to make the adjustments that I need to make in order to have a better chance at it fitting me. So I'm looking forward to fixing this one and getting a chance to wear it again. And just a quick preview of what I hope my next make is going to be. I bought the patina blouse pattern from Friday Pattern Company. I haven't made anything with buttonholes in a very long time. Everything I've been making has been kind of over the head, because this sewing machine doesn't have an automatic buttonhole feature on it. You have to have a separate buttonholer gizmo that attaches onto it, and I don't know where the buttonholer for this machine is, so I bought one on eBay. I found the right one, and this thing, if you can see, this business here attaches to the presser foot, and then you have these different keys you put in it for the size of the buttonhole you want to make. I have not used this contraption in decades, so I'm glad it came with the directions. And it was expensive, but my goal for later on this afternoon or this weekend is to get that attached and practice on a scrap of material making buttonholes, which I haven't done in a very long time. And showing you that Friday Pattern Company pattern leads me nicely into the comments I wanted to make about Joann's. As many of you know, Joann Fabrics months ago filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the reorganization type of bankruptcy, and now they're filing for bankruptcy again. And there's a lot of confusion and speculation over whether they're going to go out of business, or they're just going to close some stores or reorganize, or what they're going to do. And I've been seeing a lot of chats online. There's been a lot of talk on Threads about the possibility of Joann's closing, and a lot of people are very upset about it, and then others are saying to them, well, too bad, just get over it. You'll have to shop somewhere else. You'll have to order fabric online. You'll have to discover the independent fabric stores in your community, etc., etc. And I just want to say I understand the disappointment. There is one large Joann store in my town. I shop there frequently. I would be disappointed if they closed. There is another large Joann store in a big city about an hour drive away from me that I sometimes visit. I would be sad if they closed. I'm very fortunate I live in a place where I have other options. Um, I do think Joann's might have made a mistake going too far into the crafting and home decor um, parts of their business because the same kind of stuff is available at places like Hobby Lobby. And I know Hobby Lobby is controversial to some people too. I'm not going to hate on anybody because of where they shop. I don't shop there often, but occasionally, if there's something specific that I need, I do go there. Michael's for me is not a good source for fabric because the Michael's in my town only has like one aisle of fabric and it's mostly quilting cotton. So fabric really isn't their specialty. But since this idea of Joann's possibly closing came up, I have been ordering fabric online more often, and I've had good luck with that. I have also discovered a couple of independent fabric stores in my community, and I'm very fortunate that I have those and they're nearby. One is a big, like mega store that has beautiful stuff. Again, a lot of it is quilting cotton. I would say about half the store is quilting cotton, but they have a lot of really beautiful apparel fabrics as well, the rayons and knits and things like that Joann's really doesn't have. At least the Joann's in my town, again, it's mostly quilting cotton and fleece, but they don't have a lot of apparel fabrics. So I was really excited to discover this new place. And then just the other day, I discovered a second independent fabric store in my town that is a tiny little hole in the wall kind of place in a strip mall. But when you go in, they have beautiful specialty fabrics, Liberty fabrics, beautiful cotton lawns and things like that, but they're expensive, right? But they had a whole wall full of indie patterns, which is where I got this patina blouse pattern. Now, I have ordered these indie patterns online before. I like to watch a lot of international YouTubers, and the British ladies seem to have a lot of options when it comes to indie patterns, but I don't see them very often around here. Just the normal, big four, big five companies. So I am excited to discover this new place that has indie patterns and beautiful fabrics, even though they're a little bit costly. But I hope we can all give each other grace about our feelings about the possibility of Joann's closing. When I was in graduate school, I went to a big university, but it was in a small town, so there wasn't a lot of shopping around. And basically, the only place in town to shop was Walmart. So I'm not wild about Walmart, but that's where we bought our groceries, our clothes, our automotive care, our shoes, everything, because it was pretty much the only game in town. You could drive an hour across the state line and find a shopping mall. There was a time when I lived in a very rural town in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and the closest mall was in Canada, so you had to actually leave the country, which I was close enough to the border that was like a 20-minute drive. But I understand the feeling of isolation that comes with not having a lot of options. And I think for a lot of people who live in rural areas, Joann's might have been pretty much their only option for being able to go into a fabric store and actually see and touch the fabric. We can all order online, but that doesn't satisfy for a lot of people who want to be able to actually see what they're buying. I'm trying to educate myself more about different types of textiles, and if the description online says that it is a rayon chalet or cotton lawn or whatever, to understanding what that means about the thickness and drape of the fabric. but that is a learning curve for me. So I just want to say that the possible closing of Joann's is going to affect some of us harder than others, and I'm trying to give everybody grace um, in their feelings about it. Now, I was just in there yesterday um, buying some thread and notions, and I asked the young woman who was at the cutting table, and I asked the cashier on the way out what they knew about the possibility of closing, or if they thought their location was going to close. And both of these young women told me that they've been told nothing, that all they know is what they've seen on the news, just like the rest of us, which I think is really unfortunate. And I told them, well, I hope you don't, I hope you continue to be employed, and that they don't lose their jobs in this process. But it appears that the company is not letting the employees know much about what's going on either. So I think at this point we're all kind of in wait and see mode. I know they've been having a lot of sales, but that might not have anything to do with liquidating, or it might. I don't know. But I plan to continue sewing, even if it becomes harder to get the fabric and notions and tools that I need, because I find sewing very therapeutic. It's a great hobby for me. It's a nice change and distraction from what I normally do all day. So with that, I'm going to conclude. I'm going to say I'm very happy that you joined me for this video. I hope to make more videos, and I hope you will join me for those too. And until we see each other again, I wish you a wonderful day. Bye-bye.